tab for you using that load link at the top. Now your next tool up here is the measure tool. I'm actually going to clear these first. This eraser in the middle is your clear tool, so I can clear all this out. Actually, let me just reset my map here. And we'll go ahead and use this measure tool as the second one. And again, it works very similarly to the way the measure tool works in our online mapping that you've used before. So when you click that tool, you'll notice you get a crosshairs becomes your cursor. As I click on the map, I get a dotted red line. And up here in the upper left-hand corner, it tells you your current active segment distance, the bearing of that segment, and then as you click, you're going to get a solid red line, and it's going to tell you what that last segment distance was and what your total distance is. So as you continue to click, that total distance will grow, and it'll give you the distance on that current segment. Now if I need to go off the map here, I can pan still, and it'll still continue to keep my measure tool. So I can continue on around as long as I click down, drag the map, and I can continue to measure. So that is a nice feature there, that it does persist. To get rid of it, double click and you're done. Go ahead and again use the eraser tool to clear that. The draw polygon tool is the next tool up here, and this again is very similar to online mapping, where it lets you draw a shape of any kind of shape on here and get an area that it would be affected. So in this case, again with the crosshairs, I'll click around to draw my shape. When I'm done, I can double click and it's going to close that shape for me and then provide me with the area in square feet and in acres. So that's the way those tools work. This next one here is the buffer tool. So again, very similar to what we did on the Properties tab, this will allow you to create a buffer around a particular property. So if I first need to identify the property, so I'll select this property, go up and activate my buffer tool, and again 200 feet is the default, but again you can change that to whatever you want. Hit the go button, and I'm going to zoom this out a little bit so you can actually see what it's doing. You'll notice then that it does draw the buffer ring, that's the red ring around it, and then it highlights all of those properties within that that would be affected by that buffer. And you'll notice over in your results it has actually listed all of those properties. So then if you did want to see the actual details, or if you again want to create those mailing labels, you would just need to select these properties and load it, transfer it over, and then you could go through and create your labels that way. But that's, it's drawing you the little buffer ring is what that red ring is, and then those blue properties are everything that's affected by that buffer that you've selected. So we'll go ahead and clear that. And again, the next tool there is your eraser tool, which I've been using, that will clear anything that you've drawn on your map. The camera tool next to it is actually for Street View. So if you've used Google Street View before, you should be familiar with this one. You'll notice when you select that all of the roads turn blue. In this case, when I want to click on one of these roads that is highlighted in blue, it's going to open the Street View camera for me and actually let me go out, and I can pan around in here just like you would in Google Street View that you've used before probably. Go ahead and turn that one off. The next tool here is our oblique viewer tool. So when you click on this one, what it's going to do is actually take you out to Pictometry Online, which is the county's oblique viewer. And once it logs you in, which there is a little bug in this right now that they are actually working to fix, and it should automatically log you in. If it doesn't, you can hit the F5 key a couple of times and eventually it should log us in. There we go. A Pictometry Online is a new tool that we've gotten that has the 2010 oblique photos in it, and there is some training available on this one, and I know there'll probably be some more training coming in the future, so I'm not going to spend any time actually going through the functionality of this app today. Just wanted to let you know that that link is out there from JCLR, and if you do obviously have any questions or need any help with using Pictometry Online, feel free to call the Mapper of the Day or one of us here on the staff, and we can help walk you through it. Like I said, there will be some training coming. I know there's been one class already. But what this does is actually opens up Pictometry Online to the extent of where you were in JCLR. So it's taking that same area of the map and letting you see the oblique photos that would be associated with that. The final tool over here is a print button, and this one again is brand new. Dan's been working hard on the print functionality for this application. Clicking on this one is actually going to pop out to an 8.5 by 11 formatted landscape print of where you just were on the map. Now it is completely interactive, so once you're in the map you can still change it and move it around, zoom in and out. It doesn't allow for any overlays at this time, but that is in the works right now. So it's basically just going to give you a property map of the area that you're in within JCLR. From here you could just go up to File and Print, and you'd have an 8.5 by 11 landscape. The next set of functionality I need to go through are the layers over here on the left. There is a pretty significant amount of information over here too. You've got parcel layers where you'd have parcels, land use, and zoning, and you can only select one at a time. But in this case I can turn on land use and I can turn on zoning. Expanding the plus sign next to any one of these layers will return your legend. So in this case there I can see, you know, what the legend is for parcels. I'm currently in zoning, so if I want to see that legend, there it's going to tell me what it is that I'm looking at. And that's the same with all of these. Clicking that plus sign is going to bring back that legend. You've got flood zones available that you can look at. Planimetrics is going to bring you back your building footprints, trails, water features, vegetation, and then contours. I can actually turn off zoning, and I'll zoom in a little bit here and turn on my parcels. And turn on those planimetrics so you can kind of get an idea of what those are. That shows you the building footprints and the contour lines. The other layer brings back cities, sections, plats and subdivisions, and then monuments and section corners. The utilities layer, again, if you are a queue member or have access to QView, you would be able to turn that utilities layer on and actually view the utilities within JCLR. And then the landmarks is going to be your churches, schools, police stations, libraries, government offices, anything like that that's considered a landmark that we've put in. The next tool here is your transparency tool, and what this allows you to do is actually control the transparency of your topmost layer. So in this case, if I want to turn my imagery on, which you've got your aerial imagery button down here, if I turn my aerial imagery on and I've also got parcels on, you'll notice that you can see the parcels layer on top of my aerial. Now if I wanted to turn that off, I can take my transparency to 100, and all I'm now seeing is the aerial photography. As I drag it back to the right, you'll notice that the property layer is becoming more opaque. So now I'm actually seeing the property layer on top. So we have provided you with that tool there so that you can work with multiple layers at a time and kind of view them simultaneously. Go ahead and turn off my parcels here, and we're going to work with the aerial imagery. Again, that button is down here, and by default you're turning on the 2010 imagery. So one thing to note is that this is our newest imagery available. We don't have it in online mapping, and we haven't put it in any of our other applications. So if you do want to see that most recent aerial photography, you can actually get that now in JCLR2. The next tool here is the slider bar, the image history. What this does is allow you to actually select an area and scroll back through all of the photography that we currently have available. So right now it's at 2010. As I drag it to the left, it's going to cycle through the imagery that we have available, and it's always going to tell you at the top the current image that you're viewing. So in this case it's 2008. As I keep going across, it's going to cycle through those various images. And we can actually take you all the way back to 1941. And so you can start from 1941 and actually see how that area has changed simply by dragging this little slider bar across. You can actually view the changes in that area from 1941 up to 2010. Now the last little section here over on our tools is going to be your search bar. So if you did actually want to come in and search for a particular address, you can actually enter an address, a parcel number, an Ames map number, a township section and range, or even an intersection within this box. You do have this reset map button here. I'm going to go ahead and reset my map so it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing with this search box. I'm going to enter a couple of addresses in here. Turn my imagery off as well. And you'll notice I have the zoom to and the add to map box checked. By checking both of those, when I hit the go button, it's actually going to zoom my map to that property and put a pin there where I've identified it. Now if I want to add another property, and again I'll hit the go button, it's going to now zoom my map and put a point for that particular property. If I zoom my map out, you'll notice that there's two pins. Both my pins have stayed, and as long as I have two addresses listed that I've searched for two locations, there are also, similar to the Properties tab, there's a link down here underneath this to directions, and that again is going to take you out to Google and provide you with driving directions between those two addresses. We've also provided a link out to Google Transit, which gives you transit opportunities if you need to take public transportation or provide somebody with directions using public transportation. You can use that, and it's going to take you out to Google Transit and provide you with the best available options using public transportation. So I just wanted to note that those two are available there as well. The very last thing I want to cover today is your base map options. Again, I'm going to go ahead and clear out my address points and reset my map. When you come into the mapping interface, by default we're giving you the Google base map that you've probably seen. If you've used Google Maps, it's a very familiar interface, I'm sure. Up here in the upper right of your map, we're providing a drop down that you can actually modify the base map that you're building off of. So by default it's the Google map. We provide you with a JCLR2 map, which actually highlights Johnson County within this. It's a little bit zoomed out on my interface today. We also provide that you can start with the 2008, 1954, or 1941 photography. If you so choose that you wanted to start with an aerial image, it'll load that for you. You can have no base map if you don't want a base map at all. And again, there's the Google map there. And then we also provide you with Google's satellite imagery or a Google terrain map. So you have those options as far as what you start with for your base map that you would then add your layers to. And one thing you'll notice over here when I am zoomed all the way out is that some of these layers are scale dependent, meaning that you don't have the option to turn on parcels, planimetrics, or utilities when you're at full county extent. So you'd have to zoom in, and as you zoom in farther, you'll notice that they become available. So at a specific scale, you'll have the option to turn them